This is time for free your mind and your soul. Yo, half the story has never been told. Ladies, you got to demand what you want, and what we want is respect, right? Yo, this is up on the track. I know so you have to deal with it right. Freedom every time for the sisters. Check this. Watch this. Here we go now.
First of all, let me say that my name is Glam Girl, or I go by Glam Girl for the people online that know me and the people who may not know me. What I'm going to discuss today is my passion. What drives me,
What is your passion?
Well, let's start off with the definition of passion first, and then we'll get into, because I have a lot of passions, you know, it's not one specific thing. I'm going to break it down and just stick to one specific thing, because, you know, there's a lot of things that drive me and make me who I am and do what I want to do.
Okay.
So when we look at Webster's version, the definition of passion is a strong feeling of enthusiasm or excitement for something or about doing something. That would describe how I feel about a lot of things that I'm into in life now. Well, let's go back to the one specific thing that I'm interested in, and that's us.
Okay.
As I had talked to you before,
Right.
when we were having when I got into that deep discussion about our people and what they don't know about themselves and what I've learned over time about them and about me. Why I want to discuss passion is because that is what I have for our people, what I have.
What do you mean by you having passion for our people? What exactly?
I have passion for our people because that is something we're supposed to do. That's something we're supposed to have. If I don't have passion for our people, who else is going to have passion for us? We let other people define us. I've mentioned that to you before. We think that we have to be something or, you know, subscribe to what other people's ideas are in order to get them to pay attention to us, to get them to like us, to consider us important, when we need to be important to ourselves first. Where my passion came from is learning about who we are as a people. First, I learned about me. Someone enlightened me. They told me, you know, your idea of what you are and what life really is not true. That is somebody else's perception of what is really going on. And I'm like, well, what do you mean about that? What you talking about? And I'm like, what? They like, you're miseducated. And I'm like, miseducated? I've heard that term before, but what exactly does that mean? And they're like, well, you go to school, you learn all of these things that you need to learn in life, you know, in order to, you know, become a functional citizen in society. But is that what's really going on? Is that, you know, is that going to determine where or who you're going to really be in life? That is not what's going to determine who and where you're really going to be in life. That is a function of society where they have you, they're setting you up, they're preparing you so you can be more of a servant for others. You're not doing it for you. You think that you're doing it for you. You're being conditioned to believe that you're doing it for you, but you're not doing it for you. That's what's so, you know, genius about it, because people are completely unaware. They just don't know that they're not doing this for them. They just believe that they are. And some of them feel really good about it because, like I said, miseducation. But when you start to begin to learn about yourself and who you are and our people, you know, and I'm not talking about, you know, what we learn here. I'm talking about the real information that we don't see, that we have no idea about, that you have to go through a little bit more channels and go in depth to find. That's when you start to see the bigger picture and understand far more about who we are and who you are.
So where can people go find this information?
Well, there's places here that you can go. I mean, the National Archives, as I had told you before, that I had no clue about the information there. What made me, like I said, the passion that I have drove me because I wanted to know more and more. I wanted to have more knowledge, but I wanted to have true knowledge. I didn't want to just have all of this information in my head. And, you know, you could use it for different things, but it's not really the truth about how the world is and how the world functions and what our place should be in the world. I didn't want all of that. I wanted things that were going to make me better as a person and help me, put me on the path where I can help other people correctly and give them the guidance. So on my path, I got led to the National Archives and some of the black colleges, historically black colleges, and looking at their databases because, you know, everybody has their libraries at their schools, but because of technology now, we have access to their libraries online. People normally would have to enroll in their college. You can't just walk up into their libraries and pick up the books and learn about our history. So when I went on there and I started looking at all of this information, I got so emotional. And I just started crying because I was just like, why isn't this being taught in our schools?
Are you talking about black history?
Yeah, real black history. I'm not talking about the little, you know nothing information that they give us every year and in the Black History Month. There should not be a such thing as a Black History Month. There should not be a such thing as them, you know, giving us these little pieces to appease us of what is supposedly black history. That is not a negative that they're sharing that little bit of information with us. It's a negative that they're not letting us be exposed to all of the truth of our information, because the reason why is being kept from us, because there must be a level of fear. And I'm not saying that there is, but why else would that information be kept from us? And our people, you know, sometimes I get really disappointed because I understand that there's so many of us that are so damaged that they don't care enough or they don't care anymore. And it's about what they can put in their pockets versus what is right. If you are a preacher or you're a representative of the government, you know, in some capacity, you may have been exposed to this information, these archives, the nationally, you know, the historically black colleges. So if, you know, that being said, if you've had that exposure, and actually some of the so-called civil rights people who I will not name, there's a lot of them that talk about how they want the best for our people and want to help our people, but have they been teaching our people the truth? Real history? Have they been pulling out this information out of the archives and sharing this information with us and teaching us this information for free? Another thing that really upset me when I went in pursuit of this information is some of the information you can't get for free. And I'm just like, this is our black history. Why the hell is it not free? Why do I have to pay so much money to have full access to certain things. There were some things that were free, but there was some really deep, information that I looked at, and I decided, oh, I want to look at that. And then when I went further into the website, I discovered they were asking for a large sum of money to have access to this on a regular basis. And so I'm very upset, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to not do this because they're charging, because this is clearly something that I need to know and at some point be able to share with people. But the fact that you would ask money for knowledge that we should be teaching our people for free is just absurd. It's so ridiculous. And then I'm just like, okay, here's another something else going on that's in my way. Am I going to just say, oh, well, this is too hard, I'm just not going to do this? I'm saying, no, this is going to be another thing that drives me, that makes me more passionate about pursuing what I'm doing. Because if somebody else sees me doing this, they'll feel like maybe maybe all of this is worth something. If people don't feel like they're worth something to themselves, they're worth something to me. I'm worth something to me. But what's amazing to me is our people don't see themselves the way that they're supposed to be seeing themselves. A lot of us don't. There are some people that do, but not like we used to. Our ancestors, they instilled so much in us way back when. We don't have that because it's a product of conditioning. So I'm at a place where I'm thinking more along the lines of our ancestors, because, that's where we were. That's who we were. People think, in terms of, we have to be under this definition. We don't have to be under a definition. We never were in the past. We knew who we were. And that's all that mattered. Nothing else, none of that, all of this other bullshit that goes on, none of that mattered, because we knew who we were. And we operated and we functioned like that. We loved ourselves because we knew who we were. And we knew what we were supposed to do. We had the right things instilled, in us, and we were a unit. We didn't function separately like, the society has conditioned us to do now. We do that because we don't have that understanding of what we used to be. As a unit, we were prosperous. We understood the significance of doing things together. Today we don't have a clue about that. We think you got to do everything on your own, and we don't trust each other. All of that has been instilled in us through the society we live in today. And the only way we can really counter that is each person has to take responsibility, and they have to be willing and want to, and not look for excuses, which, I get constantly. From the most enlightened people, I get it, to people who are just, starting to have some understanding of what is really going on. But, the ones that are supposed to know better, meaning the ones that have been around before it got to like the situations have gotten so bad, our society has gotten to the point that it has. The ones that should know better, they are some of the worst ones. They make the most excuses, as to why they're not doing what they are supposed to be doing. You don't need all of this other bullshit that we've been dictated, that they keep telling you, well, you have to have so much money to do this. You got to have so much power to do this. You have power. It's a misconception that you don't have any power because you're not in a certain place that they deem that you should be. You have to be in a certain place in your mind, in here, and then you understand that you have power. One person by themselves alone with nobody else can have power, but they have to believe that. They have to understand and want to do something. And that's where I have gotten. I learned to love myself first. And that took some work. And that might take some work for other people because we have been beaten down so badly, you know, where it's just like, you know, why should I do anything? You know, what's the use of all of that? It's not going to get us anywhere. You know, you have to be ready to be positive. And that's, you know, I had to learn that. I came from a place that was extremely negative. My environment was negative. All you saw, you know, were exposed to was negativity. And a lot of us have that issue. And the only way you can combat that, if you feel like you are at a place where you want to change, is you have to go away from it. And when I say go away from it, you might have to pick up and leave everything that you know, go completely away from it. Like I did when I was like 19. I left the state that I was living in, and that was kind of scary, you know. I used the excuse of, you know, bettering myself, going to school for travel and business initially, so I can get away from the chaos. And that's what it is when, depending on where you're from, everybody doesn't have the same background, but I'm from the hood. And where I came from was chaos because, you know, that vicious cycle, that circle that some people find themselves in, because one generation, you know, is teaching the next generation, and the next generation all of the bad things, you know, or exposing them to things that they're not supposed to be exposed to because they don't know any better. So, you know, fortunately, I was blessed enough to understand that I was in an environment and I had a choice. I can stay in this environment and let it dictate who I become, or I can take control and choose to leave this all behind and work on myself until I get myself to the place I'm supposed to be. Didn't have a clue about that. I was a kid thinking this way. So I'm just like, okay, so I'm gonna go here. My grandmother lived in another place, and I was like, I can go over here with her and get myself together, because in order to get to the next place, to better yourself, you have to deal with the demons. All of the bad stuff. A lot of us make the mistake of thinking you can skip over all of that. No, you got to get rid of all of that bad stuff so you can learn how to be positive. Some aren't ready. They're afraid. They don't want to go in there and deal with all of that, you know. It was hard for me, you know. I was so negative, and I was like, oh, I don't like myself. I don't like this, you know. And I was like, well, you have a choice. You can remain messed up like this and not have any happiness. And I'm looking at all of these bad examples and role models around me, and I'm just like, this is misery. You know, I was in perfect misery, and they were in perfect misery. And so I'm just like, okay, the only thing I can do is go away from this and see what happens. You have to be willing to go away from it, leave it. If you have the, you know, if you're able to do that. You know, some people may not be able to at that specific point, but at some point you have to decide. You can't let situations and circumstances and other people hold you back. You can't let you hold you back. You want to get to that next level in life where you are happy and you want to become something for real, you know, and not just be defined by materialism and other people's point of view of what good and positive is. You have to, you know, look at what you need to do to make sure you're better first. Build yourself up from the inside out. And I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just prayed and asked for guidance and went away from all of the negativity. And when I was by myself, you know, because when you're around all that negativity and all that chaos, you can't hear anything positive. You can't see anything positive, really. I got by myself, and it was just like silence, and I'm like, and it was not something I was used to. You know, for the first time, I was just like, you know, alone with my thoughts, and that cloud of chaos started to disperse, and I could see stuff more clearer for the first time. And I was like, wow, you know, some things that should be obvious to us start to, you know, happen. I started to see things, and I was just like, wow, you know. So I was very grateful that I made that move. That was one of the best decisions that I made in my life. Had I not done that, I would not be sitting here talking to you today. You know, something bad could have happened because if I had kept, you know, remaining in that situation, afraid to, you know, do something to better myself. So all of that has led to who I've become today and the passion that I have for us as a people and, you know, building and unity and those things. And when I talk to some of our people that don't really have an understanding yet of what I'm talking about, they're just looking at me like, why? And I'm like, why not? You know, you ask me why, and I say, why not? Okay. I said, you have to remember that we used to be this way. What I'm talking about, this positive place that I'm talking, that's what we were. And what you're seeing today is somebody else's idea of who we should be. That's what you have to understand. People have choices. You can choose to remain that way. You can, you know, you may be okay with living out somebody else's ideal. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that if that's what makes you happy, but if you're not happy and you understand that this is wrong, why are you accepting it? Don't accept it. And I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy. But who said anything was going to be easy? Did God ever tell us that things were going to be easy for those who believe? I don't think we were ever told anything was going to be easy in life, you know, and it sure hasn't. There has been some moments where I was like, Lord, give me some strength so I can make it to the next place, because, whew, you know, but I'm here, you know, and I care, you know, and some people might accept that and some people may not accept that. Whether you accept it or not, I still care. What I want them to get from it is that there is a bigger picture that they are not seeing. They are not understanding that it's, you know, it's not a us against them. It's of all of us seeing each other and getting back to unity like we used to. You're not able to really prosper if all of us are not doing this as a unit. You can, make money individually, you know, and build your life up and, you know, put yourself in a little tower away from everybody else, you know, and not reach back. Yeah, you can do that. That's totally your option. But why do you want to do that? Why don't you care about your own people? Look at all the other cultures that are still unified and understand that we are not unified and what has brought us to that place. That's what I need them to get. Other cultures are not damaged like we are. And when I'm talking about us, I'm talking about us here in the U.S., but I'm talking about not just us here in the U.S., us over here in Africa. All of us are a unit. We have been told we are different. They have been told that we are different. We're not different. We've been taken from over there. Our ancestors have been taken from over there and brought over here. And things have been done over time to change who we would have been naturally. But that still does not take away from the fact of our origins and our foundation, our roots, where we came from. At our roots, at our base, that's who we are. And we need to all stop looking at each other like something is wrong with us, like you're not good enough or I'm better than you. None of that. When we were all living over there, we had our fights, wars, what have you, tribes and all of that, because that's always been through ancient history. But for the most part, the majority of us, when you looked at the history, tended to be peaceful. We had a few groups that were rowdy and rambunctious like a lot of different cultures do, but that wasn't the whole of our people. So when we can get back to seeing ourselves as, in a positive light is what I'm aiming for. And I don't expect that to happen overnight. That's not realistic. It took us a long time to get messed up like we are. So I expect to work, and I don't have an issue with it because, as I told you before, passion.
What would be some advice that you would throw out there for people that are just completely lost and are interested in changing their state of mind into a more positive state of mind?
You first have to start with here. In order to start thinking, you have to start realizing what's wrong, the problems. We don't want to face the problems. When you don't want to face the problems, you still you continuously run into the same, wall, for lack of better words. You run into the wall over and over again until you start to do something different. So you have to examine yourself. That is the hardest thing to do, like I said, but that's the best thing to do. That's how you're able to have understanding of what you need to fix. And once you start working on those things that you like least about yourself, that's when you begin to feel better about yourself. You see the problem, you're working on it, you see that it's not as bad as you have made yourself believe, and that you are worth something. And then you start researching who you are. We are so afraid to look at our past, to look at our history to see who we are. I don't know why. When you look back, you're going to just find out you were a damn king. Your ancestors were kings and queens. And I'm not just talking about way far back, not way far back. They don't understand it. It went throughout the centuries. It wasn't just way ancient in Egypt times that we were kings, back in Hannibal time. It wasn't back that far. It is, closer to the future than they think. To the present, not the future, closer to the present than they think. Our lineage, when you look at our lineage. But so many of them have bought into all of this negativity, and the conditioning is so bad. It just has such a grip. They have to first, acknowledge what's wrong and accept it. Changes won't happen without that. That's what I had to do, and that's what everybody else will have to do. And look at your history. And I'm not just talking about what they teach you in a history book here in America. There's a slanted version of what really happened. All of that. When you look at the histories in other countries, in Africa, they've documented the slave trade and that stuff too. You compare that stuff. You don't just look at one version. You find out who has documentation, and you match all of that information up, and that'll give you a better outcome of what really went on back then. You look at that, and you look at all the positive stuff that we have not learned about ourselves that we should be teaching, the things that would give us self-esteem and build us up and have us doing what we're supposed to do. A lot of us don't know what's going on. It's not getting better. Why is that? Because we're not changing with the times. Preaching, it might work for a few people, but that's not working anymore for the mass. They're just, it's one ear and out the other. So you have to come up with something else. And what that something else is people taking responsibility and, you know, being a role model, being an example. I said, okay, I don't have any money. I don't, have any ties or connections. What can I do? I have a voice. I have access to the internet for free. I can, be in contact with our people anytime I want to online. So let's do a little experiment and see what happens. The experiment was successful. I was able to connect with so many brothers and sisters, and I was proud of that. And that's like one of the best feelings of in the world. I had never connected with us on that level before. Where, you talk to a few people, you might meet some new people in your life, coming and going, and you have some great conversations. But I'm online with these people, and I'm thinking, this is what we used to do. We used to, be in the villages and stuff like that. People would gather around, and we just hang out. We haven't seen a neighbor in a little bit because they're working, they have extra things they have to do. So people come out in a little village square. Hey, how you doing, so and so? People hugging and whatever, sharing what's going on in their life, talking, sharing stories, all kind of stuff. Just being a community, being around each other, teaching each other, all of that type of stuff. We don't do that anymore. We don't even do that in our immediate family. One-on-one. Father to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, vice versa, all of that. We used to do all of those things. We don't do that anymore. People are too concerned with making some money for somebody else when you do the research. When you look at to what end, like I've learned, after building myself up and getting on the right path, then I was just like, oh hell, I gotta change my direction entirely. I'm just messed all up. This is not the route I should be going, where I'm just focused on making other people rich. I need to be focusing on getting myself together and helping our people get themselves together. That's what I should be focusing on. And once I started doing that, my life became better, happier. A lot of us are disconnected. We're desensitized. And as long as you're disconnected and desensitized, it's very difficult to care. And that's a product of the conditioning too. Putting all of this chaos in our mind, and we can't, really focus on what we're supposed to be focused on. And that's by design too. A lot of us who say they care have to embrace the ones that need our help. And there's ones that need our help and want our help. Reach your hand out. Just say, I care. When somebody hears you say that and they know that you're genuine, that makes a difference. So, the ones that, are seeing this video, hearing my voice right now, they have to understand that it starts here and here first. If you're not willing to, clean yourself up, clean up your mind, your spirit, your soul, so you can see better and have a better understanding, then, you're wasting time. You can get on that path and try to do stuff, but you're going to keep getting pulled backwards because you're not ready. You have to get ready, and that starts with building yourself up first. And then comes the knowledge. And a lot of us are lazy. We don't tell ourselves the truth, we lie. Yeah, we'll say, oh yeah, I'm into learning stuff, I want to know stuff. As soon as somebody starts talking about something, their ass is out the door. Oh, I got something to do. I can't do this right now because I got to work, I got to do all of these things. There's always an excuse, but, you see somebody coming to you and they're on a different type of level, and you know they're enlightened, let them people help you. If you know you need the help, even from the person that has the least to teach you, you can learn from them too. You don't know everything. I don't care what you think you've learned, you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. There's only one that I know of that knows everything, and that's the Creator. So, that being said, people, I care. You mean something to me, you know, and that's why I do what I do.